For the past 12 months, I set the hardest goal I've ever set for myself throughout my entire poker career.
Episode 1, Road to 1 million. The new bankroll challenge because I keep punting off money.
There's been ups, there's been downs, and certainly some lessons along the way. And now, over 45 sessions of high-stakes poker leads up to this point. Welcome to Road to a Million.
Okay, let's go over the summary of events. Near the end of 2023, early stages of 2024, I go on the biggest downswing of my entire life, losing about $1 million playing high-stakes cash games. Before this period, I was doing pretty well on quite the sun run, and then I ended up overflipping it, overdoing it too much in terms of playing too many hands, being too loose, spewy, bluffing it all off, all the bad things. And I lose about $1 million. I lose like a $300,000 pot in just an all-in pot. My Queen 10 of Hearts versus Ace 7 or something offsuit for $300,000. And I get a wake-up call. I need to probably somehow stop this, make some content out of it, hold myself accountable to, let's just go back to my good old winning ways. So from early 2024 to now, here we are in 2025, is this road to $1 million, putting myself into some high pressure situations to try to perform. You know, everything I do is super public. I'm very transparent, like wins and losses. I start off super hot, immediately winning a massive like $500,000 pot with Pocket Kings versus Airball, and then lose a little bit more. I still don't have any confidence in my poker game. I take a bunch of steps back in terms of just trying to rebuild my confidence, rebuild the bankroll, play a bunch of smaller stakes for 3 to 4 months, give or take. And then throughout that time, I'm up about $300,000. And then I think I'm ready for a shot take. You know, I just put myself through the minor leagues is what it feels like. I go play a WPT stream, play with Phil Ivey, play a variant of poker that I'm just not familiar with. And I lose $160,000 in 2 sessions. That's brutal. And then just about a few weeks ago, I play on Hustler, take another shot take, playing a 25-50 big game. I buy in for $150,000 and I immediately lose all that to Mariano in a massive pot, running it twice. And here we are. In the span of 2 or 3 sessions, handful of hours, all of my work for the like 6 months trying to rebuild the confidence in my just poker play in general, completely diminished. And I'm not sure how I feel. You know, it feels like I've been a complete failure, kind of questioning my whole decision-making process. And it's been really tough for me to go through this challenge, be very transparent and public with it, and also just be incredibly unsuccessful is what it feels like. But I'm gonna go play a cash game at Aria. I'm also actually preparing for this by playing a Club WPT Gold, playing some 1-2 online. Here we go, we have Ace 8 offsuit. I think we're playing some 1-2 to prepare for a 25-50 game we're gonna play here. It's the newest site in America. If you wanna play online poker, clubwptgold.com, use the code Rampage. I'm just hosting a bunch of giveaways. I am actually hosting a $100,000 free roll tournament in a few days now on March 18th. For anybody who uses my code, you can qualify. You don't need to purchase to enter, but you do either need to play 1,000 ring game hands or purchase the $20 gold coin package. And here we go, let's go. I have pocket deuces, we got a limp pot, hoping to hit a deuce for a set here. That would be pretty cool. And then if our opponent raises, we're playing some 1-2, some friendly stakes. Let's hit a deuce here one time. That would be pretty great. So close. But yeah, use my code Rampage. I'm hosting a $100,000 tournament, and maybe we can try to steal this one. Let's try to bet pretty big with deuces. I mean, probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but multi-way, maybe these opponents can fold? Okay, immediately do not get a fold. Okay, ace actually seems like a pretty good card for me to bluff on. We're gonna just run this, I think, now at this point. We're just probably gonna see if we can just bet him off. This bet is a little too big. I only left myself with $90 behind, pretty much. I don't think I like how I played this pot, but if you want to take my money too, you want to play with me, there we go. We get the bluff there with deuces. Wow. Oh my goodness. Here we go. Finally, one up hand. That feels good momentum going into, I'm going to play a 25-50 game at the Aria at table 1. So, been preparing, mentally trying to feel good, be in good spirits, high morale, going into a much bigger poker game. So, yeah, maybe this Road to a Million series will be all on the line in this video, depending on how well I do in this session. But let's go to the Aria.
All right, we're just getting into Aria. Today we're gonna play 25-50 with a 100 big blind ante. Shout out to the guys at table 1. Actually, they have a very nice deal. They want to play with you guys. Anyone that's in Vegas and wants to play some 25-50 or 5100 at table 1, there's a link in the description below to fill out some information about yourself, make an account with the table 1 people. If you guys are watching this video and you happen to be in Vegas whatever time and you want to play some 25-50 or 5100, click the link and you can also hop in and play with me. I think I'm gonna buy in for something reasonable today, usually like 20 or 30,000, and we're gonna walk in and hopefully turn this whole Road to a Million experiment from a failure to a small success. Let's go get the party started here. We're playing 25-50 with a $100 big blind ante, along with a $100 straddle most of the time. Buy in for $20,000, and we pick up ace-8 of spades in early position. I raise it up to 300, and I get the big blind in this situation to 3-bet me to 1,200. Well, we're going to see what happens as we see a flop of 8-4-5 rainbow in a 3-bet pot. Top pair, top picker, but definitely still scary as my opponent can just have a lot of overpairs versus me. He starts off with about a 50% pot bet of $1,200, and with top pair, top kicker, definitely can feel mixed between raising and calling, but yeah, I think against these opponents, they're going to play a little bit nittier than someone like me, I guess. So I'm going to make the call and tread a little bit more cautiously. When the turn is a 7, my opponent fires out 3,000 now with about 5,000 behind. Very, very suspicious of what's going on here. Like, can he really be betting and barreling with just an overpair here in this spot? Like, any 6 is a straight. There's a lot of 2 pairs, some sets that he loses to, and his 1-pair hands don't love this. So I decided to just make the call once again. Not sure how I feel about it. I'm a little bit suspicious of what he can have. But when the river comes a 6, my opponent goes all in. Does my opponent really have a 9 for a better straight? Do I think this opponent's capable of having 10-9? Who knows, but I just call for the chop, and we are up against pocket kings. And we're going to chop this one up. So I guess I got a very lucky run out to not lose my entire stack. But yeah, very interesting played by my opponent. I don't think I personally would have just barreled off my entire stack with pocket kings in this spot, but hey, he didn't lose any money. What do I know? Moving right along and picking up something more playable. Pocket 5s in the small blind. The button raises 300 off of a smaller stack. I make the call, and we're going to go heads up to a flop of 9-4 deuce 2 diamonds. I check it to my opponent, and he fires out $500. Definitely going to peel and make the call with some backdoor possibilities with second pair. And when the turn is the ace of spades, very tricky card to navigate on, as now I improve to a straight draw, but definitely can see some cause of concern with the ace out there. But my opponent luckily checks this one back, and we're going to see a free river, which comes a 5. Oh my goodness, this is pretty darn cool. Hitting 3 of a kind in my set on the river. I do have to be a little bit afraid of having a 4-liner to a straight here. Any 3 makes a straight, but I don't think my opponent can have that many 3s raising from the button. Who knows? But I'm going to go for the maximum, and you know what the maximum's going to be. He has about $2,700, and I'm going to play for all of it. When my opponent immediately does not snap call, definitely love seeing that, as I'm not going to run into the nuts, and I would imagine pocket 5s will be the best hand pretty much all the time. I only lose to pocket aces and pocket 9s, and I imagine both of them will be betting on this turn card. And he ends up sticking in the chips, and I show my pocket 5s. We're going to win our first significant pot of the day. Nice to get things started off early in this session. Getting very lucky hitting the 5 on the river, but happy to get paid. And we're moving right along when the same opponent rebuys and raises to $300, this time from early position. With my hand, ace-6 of hearts, happy to see a flop and make the call. 2 opponents make the call as well. So multi-way, the flop comes ace-queen-6 with 2 clubs. Action checks to me, and I'm definitely not going to let this one check through. With top and bottom pair, I bet $400. I get the cutoff to make the call, but now this time the straddle still decides to check raise to 3,000. Well, this is a really large check raise, and it's pretty much committing his entire stack as he doesn't have that much behind after this 3,000. So I don't really want to make the call and just allow the cutoff to get in here and take this hand multi-way. So I decided to isolate and min raise it up to 5,500. Gets the cutoff opponent to fold, and the straddler here who check raised wants to play for all of it. He's all in for about 7,000 total, and obviously we're going to be in here with 2 pairs. So gonna play a pretty decent sized pot. My opponent wants to run it twice, and I'm always cool with it. Happy to run it however many times. It never really changes a whole lot. He announces he has a flush draw, and my 2 pair is ahead. We fade the clubs in the first run out, hit a full house on the second one, and that's a clean scoop. Here we go, finally starting to run hot and gain some momentum. And when you know about gaining momentum here, I've got a real hand, pocket nines in the cutoff, and I raise it up to 300. Art in the small blind, he's back at it again. He wants more money and 3 bets to $1,600. I'm in here for the call. And what do you know? The flop comes 9-6 deuce. Bink City here with top set. Man, it feels so good to say Bink City. It's been a while since I've been able to say I've been running hot. Anyways, my opponent continues for 1,600. I have no incentive to scare my opponent off the pot with just top set. I make the call. Turn comes the king of spades. It's a little dicey, obviously, as the flush does get there, but here we are, still with the set. Can't really complain. He fires out 3,500, and this is definitely a good situation, I guess, with the set, even though flush is available. I make the call, and I just really want to pray and see some red cards. The river is the 3 of hearts. There we go. That's a red card, and my opponent with about $8,000 back in his stack announces an all-in via the table 1 card protector. I obviously could never fold this hand with a set along with a spade as well, and it's a complete cooler as he announces he has 2 pair. When I make the call, top 2 versus flopped top set, and turns out that king of spades was actually amazing. Gonna win a really big size pot, the largest pot of the night so far. Everything seems to be going my way.
It gives the most right there. Okay. Boy, look at that.
You got yourself. Shout out to Table 1 for sponsoring this video after this hand. If you want to join and play some private games in Vegas, if you're visiting town, want to play similar stakes like this, click the link in the description below, and maybe you get to play with me and catch some of my punts. Moving right along, I pick up King 9 suited myself. I'm on the button, I raise up to 300, and of course, Art, once again, cannot fold his hand. He has to play pots against me. He makes the call. The flop comes 9-7-5 with 2 diamonds here. With top pair, my opponent checks over to me, and I'm going to throw out 600 as a bet, and my opponent makes the call. When the turn comes a board pairing 5, my opponent now leads for 600 himself. I don't think I have much to do here in this situation besides just continue with a call. Raising seems a little bit like an overplay. Definitely could be behind trips, could be behind just anything else. I mean, you know, just a pair of 9s isn't super strong. And we're going to see a river which comes a complete brick. It's a deuce. Now my opponent takes the liberty and fires out $2,600. I obviously must call. I mean, I literally just beat himself with King 9, so how cool would it be if I have King 9 myself and beat him in a pretty large pot? So stick in a call. He's got 10 high and a dream. Once again, fueling that sponsorship money. Did you guys know? Table 1, really generous sponsors, I must say. Thank you to Art for this hand and all the money, the past 2 hands. We are going to go set mining here with pocket 7s. I raise it up to 300, and then the big blind 3 bets me to 1,600. Like I said, we got to go set mining with pocket 7s. Definitely a strong hand to see a flop with at the very least. And the flop comes Jack 9-3 all spades. Pretty interesting as my opponent decides to check out of position here. Definitely would have expected him to bet a lot of the time, but not going to fall for his trap. Who knows? Also, my hand just isn't that strong, so I check this one back. When the turn comes a 9 here, my opponent checks yet again, which seems very suspicious, and now definitely have a decision to make with what I want to do. On one hand, my hand isn't that good, but it definitely needs some protection, and my opponent is playing his hand like he has ace-king or ace-queen, ace-10 even potentially. These high cards, I could definitely just get them to fold or just get protection from. So with that said, I bet $2,000 and I get my opponent to come along for a call. So we got the pot building and the river comes another 9. So I've got a full house and my opponent checks yet again. I don't think my full house here is strong enough to bet again for value, but you know, there is some sort of argument. If I put my opponent on a hand like ace king, definitely could get some value there. But let me tell you, when I check back, he doesn't have ace king. He's got pocket aces with a spade to go along with it. So I was completely drawing dead here in this hand, but very tricky. And a big spot against this opponent is going to come a little bit later in this video. All right, on to improving my next holding. There's an only gun raise of 300. I've got 8s next to act, and I make it 1100. Action folds all the way back to my opponent, and he decides on a call. And remember when I wanted to go set mining with pocket 7s? This time it's ace, queen, 8. Yeah. That's right. A glorious flop, as I don't ever put my opponent on a hand like aces or queens. I've just got the nuts here. And when my opponent checks, I'm going to start off with a small bet. Little teaser sprinkle of $700. And that is enough to entice him to come along for a call. When the turn comes the 7 of diamonds here, my opponent checks yet again, and I'm just going to try to get it all in, of course. Here, looking at my opponent's stack, he has somewhere between $8,000 to $10,000. I'm never very good at calculating and counting out chips, but I bet 2,600. Definitely going to be sizing up here on the turn, and then going to be all in on the river, of course. And when my opponent makes the call yet again, this is going to be beautiful. Now the river is the king of clubs. You know, opponent checks yet again. This is just amazing. Amazing because I'm going to be jamming all the time on this run out anyways. The king just feels really good, as I'm going to have a lot of ace kings in the world, and, you know, maybe my opponent can have that as well, but I definitely would be bluffing a lot of the time on this run out. So here we go. When he checks over to me, I'm going to put him all in, somewhere between $6,000 to $7,000, and he snap calls. I announce a set, and it's going to be the winner here. So I'm just winning lots of pots, rebounding. Things are going really, really well. And somehow my opponent says that he should have 4-bet pre-flop. So sounds like he might have had ace king, might have had ace queen. Now here we go. All the sun run today leads up to this very hand. There's a low jack raise to 300. The small blind makes the call, and I pick up queen 6 of hearts on the straddle. Definitely going to make the call for $200 more. And we're going to go to a flop of king 10 high with 2 hearts. Action checks it to the low jack pre-flop raiser, and he makes it $400. Small blind makes the call, and I don't know if I want to check raise. It seems a little ambitious here, so I just call as well. But the turn is the glorious jack of hearts, so I bink the second nut flush, but also with some potential for the royal as well, or even a straight flush. Here, my opponent decides to put in a lead of 1100 now. A little bit suspicious of how this is going to play. I mean, this is the opponent that had pocket aces, like I said, so I decided to just make the call. We're playing very, very deep, and we're multi-way, and against this lead, it seems a little bit unintuitive for my opponent to do this, so maybe he has a strong hand, but at least we're going to see what happens. The cutoff ends up folding, so we're going to go heads up to a river with the second nut flush, and it's a complete brick. Nothing has changed. It's a beautiful run out for my specific hand, and now my opponent decides to put in a pot-sized bet of $4,000. And oh my goodness, this is pretty much music to my ears, but I do have to say there is some cause of concern because this opponent has been extremely passive and extremely nitty the entire time. Hasn't really put a whole lot of money in, and when he has put money in, it's always been with basically the nuts. So look, I'm hoping he has like a 9 high flush, 8 high flush, who knows, but I'm going to put in a raise to $18,000 and proceed from there. The moment I put in this raise, my opponent looks immediately uncomfortable, which I'm hoping is good news. I'm not quite convinced yet, but if my opponent just decides to make the call, then I know I have the winner with the second nuts, of course. But as more time passes, the more uncomfortable he is looking, or at least he's trying to look. Because after all of this time, he announces something outrageous. That's right. He's all in? No way. Are you kidding me? Did he really just slow roll or Hollywood me this entire time for a solid minute or two? I asked the dealer for a count just because it seems responsible to know exactly how much my opponent is all in for, and it's an amount that I could possibly fold to. It's $33,500. So here's the situation. My opponent leads on the turn when the flush completes. Then he leads for pot on the river. I raise him massive, and now he's all in for even more, for pretty much double what I raised for? I mean, how many guys are sick enough to even do this with a bluff? It's pretty obvious, or I hope that no one is playing this way with like an 8 or 9 high flush, because look at the board. The king, jack, and 10 of hearts are all out there. There's no other hearts and flushes that I beat besides a 9 high flush, and that's pretty ambitious to do. So I've run into the situation a lot at this point, and I and pretty convinced it's the nuts, especially considering how this opponent has played up until this point. I'm obviously agonized at the spot. I'm really annoyed that every time things go well for me, I just end up always running into it in some fashion, and I refuse to pay this guy the extra $15,000. So let me know what you guys would do in this spot, because I'm not having fun, but I'm going to fold the second nuts. I am the person that will never fold bottom pair most of the time. But here we go. I sacrifice all the profits of the day, lose the biggest pot I ever play in today, and we're going to move on. But let me know in the comments below what you would have done in this situation, because I thought I kind of had it crystal clear, but the more I think about it and I'm doing this commentary, I might be second guessing myself at this point. But with the full tilt in play, we're going to get it all in here with ace king offsuit on the button. There's a cutoff raise of 300. I 3-bet to 1100. My opponent 4-bets, and he's got like 13,000 in a stack. At this point, after folding the second nuts on the hand, I don't care. We're going to play ace king for any amount. So I'm all in for about 13,000 effective. And just like that, we were playing a $26,000 pot all in pre-flop. I announce my hand, and he says that ace king is behind. So off to 2 runouts we go, knowing ace king is behind. We've got to hit. And just like that, here we go. We're actually winning some hands. We got a rebate from the last hand that we had. Unlucky to Jimmy for losing the flip, it seems like, but hey, I can't complain. I'm happy. I'm very, very happy about this. And 2 deals later, we're going back, hopping on the saddle with ace queen. This time I raised 300, then an opponent on the button raises to 1,000. He's also been very quiet at the table so far, so I want to tread a little bit cautiously. I make the call. The flop comes king, king, 3 with 2 spades, and I've got the ace of spades in my hand. So when I check, my opponent puts out $300 as a bet. I don't know what's happening here, but I don't think my opponent has a good hand, or at least not a king, because there's over 2,000 in the middle and he bets 300. So putting him to the test immediately and putting some pressure on him, I check raise to $1,800. Here for 1,800, my opponent does make the call, so maybe he just has a pocket pair of sorts. In the turn comes the 7 of spades, which is amazing to see. Here, definitely going to continue firing, obviously turning my ace queen into a bluff now, but with the ace of spades, can't be that bad. I bet $4,000 here into the middle, and my opponent doesn't look super happy, but does come along for a call. And now here we go to a river, which comes another board pairing 3. A complete disaster. I mean, I had all the intention in the world to just fire off all the money out there and put them to the test. But when the board double pairs, it seems really ambitious to bluff someone off in this spot, especially when I was kind of repping a flush. Would I really be all in here when it's so easy for him to have a king, and now all of a sudden I'm just all in with a flush versus what could be a full house a lot of the time? So a little bit annoyed at the situation. I expect to check and lose a lot, but I'm definitely giving up now, even though I have a great hand. I check. My opponent ends up checking back with pocket jacks, and here we go. Losing more money playing hands post flop. Not super thrilled about the run out, but maybe, I guess with his specific hand, I could have just jammed, but that seemed a little too risky for my taste. With the session winding down, I am going to need to claw out of this hole that I put myself in. With Jack 8 offsuit in the small blind, I raise up to 500, and I get the big blind to make the call. So here, first time playing a hand against the opponent on the vlog. The flop comes 10-9-4, rainbow. Flopping open-ended, I start off with a check as we're playing super deep. This opponent has also a lot of chips in front of her. She bets out 600, and with my open-ender now, let's just go for glory again. I check raise the $2,000, and my opponent does come along for a call, so maybe she's got a good hand, but when the turn is the Jack of Hearts, brings in the backdoor flush draw, now improving my hand to just a straight draw. Now I've got top pair and a straight draw, but I'm going to check it here in this spot. The board's a little bit connected. Definitely don't have the winner a lot of the time, I don't think, but here it can't be that bad to check. And my opponent does fire out a bet of 3,500. Definitely not going to be folding, considering how great this turn card is, but I don't love the situation I'm currently in because I can still be behind like Jack 10 and Jack 9 and stuff, and maybe sometimes she has King Queen. The river comes a board pairing 4, and this time action quickly goes check check on the river. I announce my Jack, and as I suspected, it's no good, but it's no good against a hand I did not expect. It's pocket queens. Wow. Trapped me with queens. Gonna lose this one, but man, I'm just thinking about how glorious this pot could have been had I turned a queen instead of a Jack. I could have won a really big one. To wind off the last hand of the night, I've got a small pocket pair. It's 3s in early position. Let's just put in a raise and see a flop. I raise up to 400 and I get the big blind and straddle to call. And the flop comes ace, king, queen, 2 spades. Multi-way here, action checks to me. Definitely could consider betting, but I wanted to take the passive route, and let's see what happens on the turn. At least I'm in position. Turn comes a 9 of clubs. Action checks to me yet again. At this point, I definitely need to start bluffing, and I think 3s is a pretty good hand to do this with. So I bet $1,000, something I could do with top pair a lot of the time. And when the big blind folds, the straddler does make the call. This is the same person who got me really good when I had the queen 6 of hearts. So maybe I can just win one hand against them and bluff them off this pot. The river is the deuce of diamonds. My opponent checks yet again, and I was really hoping and somehow trying to turn this deuce into a 3. They just look so close to each other, honestly. But yeah, here we are. Definitely have a hand that I want to be bluffing with, and I'm gonna bluff for 2,200 bucks. Can I get a weak ace and put them into a tough spot? Can I just put a 1 pair of kings and they can just easily fold? But my opponent's in the tank because I guess I've got a live read. He's soul reading me. I'm not sure, but I can't beat the guys. He sticks in a call with king jack, and here we go. I think I'm gonna call it a night now. Can't win anymore. I was up lots of money, and no longer, as I gave all of those profits away.
And there it is. After about 7.5, 8 hours of play, a full work session, one would call it. Very, very disappointing. Oh my goodness. Going from up 20,000, at least 25,000, ends in this. I played for about 8 hours in the game for 70, cashing out for 66,850, which is a loss. Booking another L of about $3,000, a little bit more. And I don't know, man. I've throughout this entire challenge, Road to a Million, all the cash game sessions, I've played about 45 sessions this time last year. So about a full year has come and gone. Played about 45 times. I'm up super small, 25,000. I mean, through hundreds and hundreds of hours played, buying in for $100,000 here and there all the time, and you swing pretty much break even for the stakes I'm playing. I don't know how much of a success I would call this, but so let me know in the comments below if you think this is a success or not. I would call it a complete failure, but that's me maybe being a little too hard on myself. But I'm hosting a free roll, $100,000 free roll on March 18th. You can qualify at the end of March 16th, so I'll see you guys there. I'll be live streaming it, and can't wait to see who wins my money on Club WPT Gold. Use the code Rampage, exclusively only for people who use my code on Club WPT Gold. It's the newest online poker site available to Americans, so see you guys over there.